Hello, my name's James Sullivan. I'm a freelance video and audio producer based in London. In this lockdown period, I've been working with lots of businesses of various sizes and various sectors, all with this essential aim of reaching their clients or customers and audience with some video content. Now, it's a great time to do that. It's never been easier to create video content, and at the moment in particular, we've become very accustomed to watching videos that are not professionally shot. They're just made by the people themselves in their own homes, and they don't have a big team of professionals behind them, which is great news. But there are a few things that are worth bearing in mind before you start making video content, just to make that a little bit more professional. In terms of kit, it couldn't be much easier. I would just use a phone or a tablet. The only thing to remember really is to use the camera on the back rather than the front-facing camera, the selfie camera as it were, because the one on the back is likely to be a slightly better resolution. You can also record on your laptop, but just be careful with that, because my laptop, for example, is quite old, so it makes quite a loud whirring noise sometimes. You can't necessarily predict when. So it might just be safer to go with your phone and put it on airplane mode, just to avoid any beeps or vibrations and things like that. In terms of framing, eye level, basically, and sitting down is probably the easiest way to do that. And it also looks a little more informal and more relaxed. So if you have a tripod, perfect, but you can also just get a stack of books and just prop up the phone so that it's nice and solid and secure. You can do handheld, that's okay, maybe you have a housemate or a partner, but realistically, it might just be easier just to have the phone in one position, press record and walk away. Distance from camera is something that's worth considering, but again, it's what looks natural. You don't want a face looming at you too close. Neither do you want it so far away that you get a bit lost with the backdrop. And also, if you're too far away, the sound quality will be worse. We'll talk about the sound a bit later. The final thing to consider is probably the backdrop. You don't want anything too busy, nor do you want anything too sparse. This is probably too busy, if anything, but it also just depends what you've got. You might think that a bright white wall is going to look nice, but in reality, it'll probably just look a bit sparse and spartan, so a bit of color is okay. Final thing to remember is something which happens all the time, is just keep an eye for things that appear like they're coming out the back of your head. So often that'll be plants, or if you're in the kitchen, a pot of wooden spoons, it'll suddenly look like you've got antlers or something. So just do a test, 5-second test, and then watch that back and just watch very carefully for anything that appears to be sprouting from your shoulders or through your head. Possibly the most important thing is light. And probably the most important thing about light to remember is not to have the light behind the subject. So you don't want to be shooting in front of a window, for example, because you'll get this blinding whiteness behind you, and then the subject will be in shadow. And that's very hard to correct, if not impossible to correct in the edit. So you want light on the face of the person, but not so much that you're squinting. Just a nice, well-lit room, in essence, and natural light always wins. So if you're trying to point lamps and lights at the person, then you're probably not in the right room, and you should try and maneuver yourself around or just shoot at a different time of day. In terms of sound, if you're using a phone or a tablet, then really the microphone on that phone or tablet is going to be good enough, providing that you're shooting in a smallish room and that you've done everything you can to try and reduce the outside noise. So if you're in the kitchen and there's an aircon, just turn it off for a few minutes. If the window's open, just close them for a few minutes. If the oven's humming, just turn it off for a few minutes. There are a few things you can do if you want to improve the sound quality of the room. You can hang up some coats, for example, and those coats will absorb any of the noise that's bouncing around off the bare walls. But in essence, if it's a smallish room full of stuff, furnishings, coats, clothes, whatever, then it's probably going to be okay. Maybe you want a voiceover on your video, and the best way to do that is to take your microphone, which again could be your phone, and cover yourself with a duvet or a towel and record in there, and it completely absorbs all the sound and makes for a really nice crisp recording. In terms of recording, one thing which I should have mentioned at the start maybe, is record landscape, don't record portrait. Most screens are in landscape, so you should record that way too. Don't be afraid of doing lots of takes. Maybe you could do one long one first of all, and then a load of short, sweet ones, and then you can choose which you think is better. In all likelihood, the edited short, sweet ones are going to work better, because the cuts don't matter. Don't worry too much about jumping from cut to cut. We've become very used to seeing that in video. For example, I'm going to do a cut now, and you can see that it doesn't really affect our viewing experience. I would say follow the one more for luck rule. just do another one. If you have a little doubt in your stomach about whether it's as good as it can be, just do another one, then you'll know. Music is something which really adds a lot to videos, and we're very used to hearing music beds burbling along underneath someone talking, as there is now. And it's very easy to get hold of stock music. There are lots of stock music libraries online you can find. Some are completely free, some are free but require you to attribute the video to the composer, which is in the description of the video. Some you pay a license fee for, which just depends on what you're using the video for. So just have a look around and see what suits your needs best. I use one called Audio Network, which is a huge audio library, and YouTube has an audio library as well. So just have a look around. The thing that's going to truly scupper your video far more than the technical stuff that I've kind of been talking about is obsessing too much about the perfect take or getting your words precisely right. If you're obsessing about that stuff too much, then in all likelihood, you're going to be too nervous and anxious and tense, and the authenticity that you're looking for in video will be completely lost. So just try as much as possible. I know it's a bit awkward talking to a camera, possibly by yourself, but really try to relax and it will make for a much more effective video.